Your English is inadequate. I pay good money for a clean office, and I expect communication, not grunts." The words, sharp as shards of broken glass, hung in the cold, marble-lined corridor of Thorne Innovations. Mr. Harrison Thorne, CEO, stood before her, immaculate in his charcoal suit, his gaze sweeping over Elena Petrovna, whose hands, still gripping a mop handle, trembled almost imperceptibly. He pointed at a faint smudge on the polished floor. "Do you understand? Inadequate." Elena, her face a mask of quiet deference, simply nodded. Her eyes, however, held a depth that Thorne, blinded by his own assumptions, entirely missed. He saw a cleaner, a woman of simple means, an immigrant struggling with the intricacies of a new language. He saw nothing else. He certainly didn't see the woman who, just weeks ago, had seamlessly navigated complex international negotiations, her voice echoing with the precision of a seasoned diplomat, effortlessly transitioning between German, Russian, and Japanese. This wasn't about a smudge. This was about power, about perceived status, about the chasm Thorne believed separated him from the likes of Elena. But what if that chasm was merely a figment of his own narrow vision? What if the very person he dismissed held the key to his greatest challenge? This is the story of a CEO who insulted a maid for speaking poor English, unaware that her reply, in perfect German, would change absolutely everything. This janitor genius would trigger a profound CEO redemption, a true linguistic miracle. The deal, the German consortium, billions of dollars, hanging by a thread thinner than a spider's silk. The air in the executive suite was thick with desperation, the clock ticking like a bomb about to detonate. Mr. Thorne's face, usually composed, was etched with a raw, almost primal fear. He paced, his jaw clenched, the expensive leather of his shoes squeaking faintly on the polished floor, each sound a testament to his rising agitation. It's incomprehensible. The nuances, the legal jargon, our best translators can't crack it. Henderson, his head of international relations, stammered, sweat beading on his forehead, his usually crisp tie now slightly askew. His voice cracked with a strain. The German delegation, stony-faced, was already packing their briefcases. Their movements were slow, deliberate, a silent, terrifying signal of imminent departure. This was it. Failure, humiliation, the collapse of months of painstaking work, countless sleepless nights, and the ambitious future Thorne had envisioned for his company. The weight of his company's future, the livelihoods of hundreds, perhaps thousands, rested squarely on his shoulders, and he was failing. He could feel the cold grip of defeat tightening around his throat, stealing his breath, chilling him to the bone. This wasn't just business. This was personal. This was his legacy, shattering into a million pieces before his very eyes. He desperately needed a miracle, a savior. But who? Where could he possibly turn? The answer, ironically, was closer than he could ever imagine. Just down the hall, pushing a cleaning cart, was the very person he had so carelessly, so cruelly dismissed. The universe, it seemed, had a darkly ironic sense of humor, poised to deliver an underdog triumph in the most unexpected way. Elena had heard it all. Every frantic whisper, every frustrated sigh, every panicked curse echoing from the executive floor. She had heard Mr. Thorne's booming voice, laced with a desperation she had never imagined possible from such an imposing figure. And she had heard the words that sent a shiver down her spine, chilling her to the marrow. Anyone who can understand it. Her fingers, still damp from the cleaning solution, trembled. A silent battle raged within her, a visceral conflict that tore at her very being. The shame, the fear, the ingrained habit of invisibility she had cultivated since arriving in America, a protective shell against a world that had taken so much, pitted against a sudden, burning conviction, a spark of purpose that felt almost divine. She knew this German, not just understood it, but lived it, breathed it. It was the language of critical UN briefs, of desperate pleas from refugees, of hushed conversations in diplomatic chambers. It was the language that had once been her lifeblood, defining her identity, her worth. She took a deep, shuddering breath, the scent of ammonia from her cleaning bucket, mixing oddly with the overwhelming aroma of expensive coffee wafting from the executive suite. A strange, almost absurd juxtaposition, highlighting the stark contrast of her two worlds. A cleaning lady, about to walk into a room full of titans, to offer a solution they couldn't fathom, a linguistic miracle hiding in plain sight. She adjusted the faded, worn work jacket she wore, its fabric rough against her skin, a tangible symbol of her hidden life. This wasn't just about the company anymore. This was about her. About proving something not just to them, but to herself. About reclaiming a piece of the woman she used to be, before war and displacement had stripped her bare. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, to remain in the shadows, to continue her quiet, anonymous life, safe from the glare of judgment. But a flicker of defiance, a spark of something she hadn't felt in years, ignited within her, a fierce, quiet fire. She wiped her hands on her apron, her movements deliberate, resolute. Then, with a firm nod, a decision forged in the crucible of her past, she walked towards the executive suite, ready to shatter expectations and embark on an academic redemption. Mr. Thorne looked up, his eyes bloodshot, his face a roadmap of stress, each line a testament to the weight of his failing deal. He saw Elena, her mop discarded, standing hesitantly in the doorway, a figure so out of place it almost seemed a hallucination. A flicker of irritation, sharp and immediate, crossed his features. "What is it? Can't you see we're in the middle of a crisis?" His voice was a low growl, barely controlled, laced with the frustration of a man at the end of his rope. Elena's gaze, usually downcast and deferential, met his directly. There was no subservience now, only a quiet, unwavering resolve that seemed to emanate from her very core. I can help," she said, her English still heavily accented, but her voice steady, clear, and imbued with an unexpected authority. A collective gasp rippled through the room, a wave of stunned disbelief. Henderson, the head of international relations, scoffed, a sneer twisting his lips. "You, with all due respect, Miss Petrova, this is a highly technical, multi-billion-dollar agreement. It's in German, real German, not tourist phrases." He smirked, and a few others in the room chuckled, nervous and dismissive, their eyes reflecting the same ingrained prejudice Thorne himself harbored. Mr. Thorne narrowed his eyes, a familiar skepticism hardening his gaze. "This is no time for jokes, Miss Petrova. Get back to your duties." His words were clipped, dismissive, a reflex born of years of ingrained hierarchy. Elena didn't flinch. She took a step further into the room, her eyes sweeping over the complex document splayed across the gleaming conference table, absorbing its intricate details with a speed that startled even herself. I understand this German. I can translate." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but the certainty in it cut through the tense atmosphere like a finely honed blade. Thorne stared at her, incredulity warring with the desperate, a logical hope that glimmered in the darkest corners of his despair. "You understand this German?" He picked up a sheet, its paragraphs dense with legal terminology, and thrust it towards her, his hand shaking slightly. "Translate this sentence. Right here." He pointed a sharp finger at a particularly convoluted clause, challenging her, testing her. Elena's eyes scanned the text, absorbing it instantly. A silence, heavy with doubt and anticipation, descended upon the room, broken only by the rapid beat of Thorne's own heart. Then she spoke, not in her halting English, not in the simple phrases he expected, but in fluent, melodic German, her pronunciation flawless, her tone authoritative, imbued with the unmistakable ring of a seasoned professional. "Die Vorliegen Vereinbarung Tritten Kraft, sobald alle Beteiligten Partien die in Anhang wie festgelegten obligatorischen Due Diligence Befunden abgeschlossen, und die schriftlich bestätigt haben. Das alle behördlichen Genehmigungen und die Lizenzen gemäß den geltenden Gesetzen der Bundesrepublik Deutschland erteilt wurden." The room froze. Henderson's jaw dropped, his smug expression replaced by one of absolute shock. Thorne's eyes, initially narrowed in skepticism, widened, a slow dawning of disbelief and something akin to awe replacing his earlier irritation. He snatched the document back, comparing Elena's flawless German to the official translation his own team had struggled with, searching for a flaw, a mistake. There was none. Her translation was not just accurate, it was perfect, capturing every nuance, every legal subtlety, every hidden implication with a precision that was simply breathtaking. Who are you?" Thorne whispered, the question no longer accusatory, but laced with a profound, almost bewildered curiosity, as if he had just witnessed a miracle. This was no ordinary cleaner. This was a hidden identity unveiled, an underdog triumph beginning to unfold. Elena's mind drifted back, not years, but decades, to Kiev, not the war-torn city of today, scarred and broken, but the vibrant, bustling capital of her youth. a place of laughter echoing through ancient streets, of sunlight glinting off the golden domes of ancient cathedrals, of endless possibilities stretching before her like an open road. She saw herself, a young woman, brimming with dreams, her head buried in textbooks, mastering languages with an almost obsessive zeal. She wasn't just learning words, she was learning worlds, each new tongue unlocking a new dimension of understanding. German, then French, then the stark beauty of Russian, and the intricate, elegant dance of Japanese, each language a key to a new culture, a new way of thinking. Her talent hadn't gone unnoticed. She was recruited, young, eager, and undeniably brilliant, into the United Nations Interpreters Program. The grand halls of Geneva, where the fate of nations was often decided by a single word, the high-stakes negotiations, where misinterpretations could ignite conflicts, the immense weight of nations resting on the clarity and precision of her words. She was a bridge, connecting cultures, averting conflicts, building understanding, a silent architect of peace. She thrived on the pressure, the intense intellectual challenge, the profound sense of purpose that coursed through her veins with every translated syllable. Then the darkness descended, the shadows stretched, encompassing her beloved homeland. The invasion, the unimaginable chaos, a maelstrom of destruction and despair. The bombs, the piercing wail of sirens, the constant, terrifying fear that clung to her like a second skin. Her work, once about bridging understanding, became about conveying desperate pleas for help, documenting unspeakable atrocities, translating the raw, visceral language of suffering. She saw things, heard things, felt things that no human should ever have to witness, etched permanently into her memory. The purity of language, her sacred craft, was twisted into a weapon, a tool of propaganda, a means to control and oppress, tainting the very essence of her being. She had to escape, not just for her own survival, but for the preservation of her very soul, for the last vestiges of her hope. She sold everything she owned, packed a single, worn suitcase that held the remnants of her past, and with a heart heavier than lead, a burden of grief and loss, left behind the life she knew, the career she loved, the country she adored. She arrived in America with little more than the clothes on her back and the languages still singing in her mind, a symphony of lost dreams. But here in this new world, they were a burden, a dangerous secret, a painful link to a past too raw, too agonizing to acknowledge. She became invisible, a cleaner, a ghost in a luxury hotel, then here, at Thorne Innovations. It was safe. It was quiet. It was the betrayal of everything she was, a silent surrender of her true self. And yet, here she was. The past had finally caught up to her, not with bombs and chaos, but with a complex German document and the stunned silence of a room full of powerful men. The life she had tried so desperately to bury, the brilliant mind she had forced into dormancy, was now screaming to be heard, demanding recognition. It was terrifying, and yet there was a flicker of something else, something she hadn't felt in years, a faint, almost forgotten spark of pride, a defiance that burned brightly within her. The silence in the room had given way to a new kind of tension, one laced with awe, not disdain. Mr. Thorne, his face still pale with shock, gestured for her to continue. The world, it seemed, was finally ready to listen, ready for an academic redemption and a true underdog triumph. "Continue," Mr. Thorne repeated, his voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to his usual booming tone, his eyes fixed on Elena with an almost desperate intensity. He had moved from disbelief to a frantic, almost pleading urgency, hanging on her every word. Elena, her initial fear giving way to a focused intensity, an almost surgical precision, began to translate the dense legal clauses, the intricate financial terms, the subtle diplomatic nuances of the German document. Her voice, once hesitant, now flowed with an effortless authority, each word perfectly articulated. She wasn't just translating words. She was interpreting intent, conveying unspoken meanings, illuminating the true heart of the agreement with startling clarity. It was a linguistic miracle unfolding before their very eyes. Henderson, the head of international relations, who had scoffed just moments earlier, now leaned forward, scribbling notes furiously, his eyes wide with a mixture of shame and wonder. His previous disdain had been replaced by a humbling admiration. The German delegates, who had seemed on the verge of abandoning the negotiation, now sat transfixed, their expressions shifting from polite disinterest to active engagement, then to genuine admiration, their nods of approval becoming more frequent and emphatic. They recognized a master at work. Suddenly, Elena paused, her brow furrowed, a slight crease forming between her eyes. Her eyes, sharp and discerning, scanned a specific paragraph, lingering on a few key words. "Wait," she murmured, her voice losing its previous fluidity, a hint of concern entering her tone, a subtle shift that caught Thorne's immediate attention. Thorne, his heart pounding in his chest, desperate for her insight, leaned in. "What is it? A problem?" His voice was tight with anxiety. "This clause." Elena pointed with a delicate finger to a specific sentence, her touch light but firm. "It's ambiguously worded, or perhaps deliberately so." She looked up, her gaze meeting Thorne's, a profound understanding passing between them. "It refers to contingent liabilities pertaining to environmental remediation. But the phrasing, it implies a transfer of unforeseen future costs, not just current liabilities." Her voice was soft, but the weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Thorne snatched the document, his eyes scanning the lines, a cold dread beginning to spread through him. He thrust it at Henderson, his voice sharp with urgency. "What is she talking about? Is this in our translation?" Henderson, his face ashen, quickly pulled up their official translation on a tablet. He scrolled down, his fingers trembling, dread building with every swipe. It says, "Liabilities for environmental remediation." It doesn't specify contingent or future. He looked up at Thorne, his voice barely audible, thick with realization. "It's a subtle difference, sir, but crucial one. A very, very costly one." Thorne's blood ran cold, a wave of icy realization washing over him. A single word, subtly altered, a seemingly innocuous omission, could expose Thorne Innovations to unforeseen, potentially ruinous environmental costs, billions in hidden liabilities that could cripple his empire. It was a trap, expertly laid, hidden in plain sight, a viper in the tall grass. Elena, the cleaner he had dismissed, the woman whose English he had insulted, had just saved his company from a catastrophic financial blow. It was an astonishing act of CEO redemption, orchestrated by an underdog triumph. This is brilliant," Thorne whispered, his voice hoarse with a mixture of shock and profound gratitude, his gaze fixed on Elena, as if seeing her for the first time. You caught it." His eyes, now filled with respect, held a new, almost reverent light. The German delegation, alerted by the sudden shift in atmosphere and the intensity of Thorne's reaction, began to murmur amongst themselves, their initial composure replaced by a growing curiosity. One of the delegates, a severe-looking man named Schmidt, spoke in clipped, precise German, his eyes also fixed on Elena. Elena, without hesitation, translated for Thorne, her voice unwavering. He says our original document was correct, but he compliments my unparalleled linguistic precision, and suggests that such clarity of understanding is rare and invaluable." Her face remained impassive, but a faint flush colored her cheeks, a subtle sign of a profound internal shift. Thorne straightened, his shoulders still tense, but a new light in his eyes, a dawning of profound understanding and humility. He looked at Elena, really looked at her, for the first time in his life. Not a cleaner, not an immigrant with poor English, but a woman of extraordinary intellect, courage, and discernment. The crisis, though still unfolding, had shifted. He had found his unlikely savior, his janitor genius, the hidden key to his company's future. The deal was saved. More than saved. It was strengthened, made more secure, all thanks to Elena's uncanny ability to dissect language and unearth hidden dangers. The German delegation, impressed by her brilliance and Thorne's quick pivot, signed the agreement, their initial skepticism replaced by a newfound respect that bordered on awe. They had witnessed a true linguistic miracle. Mr. Thorne, his earlier arrogance entirely stripped away, now stood before Elena, his hands clasped behind his back, a posture of deference rather than dominance. The grand office, with its panoramic views of San Francisco, seemed to shrink around them, the vastness of the city outside dwarfed by the enormity of the moment, the profound transformation taking place within its walls. "Elena," he began, his voice softer than she had ever heard it, imbued with genuine humility. "I owe you an apology, a profound apology." He cleared his throat, his gaze meeting hers directly, unwavering. "My assumptions, my remarks, they were ignorant, arrogant, and frankly, deeply disrespectful." He took a step closer, his eyes earnest, reflecting a raw vulnerability. "You possess a talent, a level of understanding, that most of us can only dream of. And I almost let my own prejudice cost this company everything. My own arrogance almost destroyed us. Elena's eyes, usually guarded and reserved, softened, reflecting a quiet compassion. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips, a glimmer of forgiveness. "It is understood, Mr. Thorne." Her accent was still present, but her words carried the weight of profound truth. He shook his head, a gesture of deep regret. "No, it isn't. Not truly. I need to make this right. I must." He paused, then gestured around the opulent office, encompassing the entire world of Thorne Innovations. This is a world where words are currency, where misinterpretations can cost fortunes, where a single misplaced comma can mean ruin. You are not a cleaner, Elena. You are a linguist, an interpreter, a strategic asset, a vital, indispensable part of this company, and I need you. He extended his hand, not a handshake of formality or business, but of genuine respect, a plea for partnership. "What do you say?" Elena looked at his outstretched hand. The cold marble hallways, the demanding executives, the anonymity of her cleaning uniform, they all seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the warm light of possibility, a beacon guiding her towards a new future. This wasn't just a job offer, it was an invitation to reclaim her identity, to step back into the world she had fled, the world of intellect and influence, but this time on her own terms, with her dignity fully intact. It was an offer of true CEO redemption, an astonishing outcome for an underdog triumph. She thought of Kiev, of the trauma, the fear, the desperate need for escape that had driven her across continents. And then she thought of the quiet dignity she had maintained, the knowledge she had kept hidden, the resilience that had brought her to this very moment, stronger than she had ever been. This was not just about Thorne Innovations. It was about every hidden genius, every overlooked talent, every soul dismissed because of their appearance, their accent, or their circumstances. "Yes, Mr. Thorne," Elena said, her voice clear, strong, and brimming with a newfound confidence that radiated from her. She shook his hand, a firm, unwavering grip, sealing not just a professional agreement, but a profound human bond. "I accept." Weeks turned into months. Elena Petrova, once the quiet cleaner, a ghost in the gleaming corridors, was now an indispensable part of Thorne Innovations. Her office, modest but filled with natural light, was adorned not with cleaning supplies, but with stacks of books on linguistics, global affairs, and cultural studies, each spine a testament to her vast knowledge. Her days were no longer filled with mops and buckets, but with international calls, complex documents requiring her intricate understanding, and strategic discussions where her insights were sought, valued, and acted upon. She found herself in meetings with dignitaries from around the globe, advising on delicate diplomatic protocols, her quiet wisdom often averting potential blunders. Most importantly, she was bridging gaps that had once seemed insurmountable, connecting people and cultures through the power of her profound understanding. Her command of languages was not just a skill, it was a superpower, a bridge across divides. She spoke with a quiet authority, her insights often cutting through bureaucratic red tape and cultural misunderstandings with surgical precision, leaving everyone in awe of her unique ability. Mr. Thorne, once so outwardly rigid, so consumed by his own status, had undergone a profound transformation, a remarkable CEO redemption. He listened now, truly listened, not just to Elena, but to everyone, seeking out diverse perspectives. He implemented new programs for language training for his staff, a direct result of Elena's influence, fostering a more inclusive and understanding workplace. He even started learning rudimentary phrases in different languages, much to the amusement of his son, Michael, who saw a genuine change in his father. One afternoon, Michael Thorne, who had been an early, quiet supporter of Elena and a witness to his father's transformation, approached her office. He leaned against the doorframe, a warm smile on his face. "Elena," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "My father, he's different. He's calmer, more open, more human. You've had an incredible impact on him, more than you know." Elena smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that lit up her face, erasing years of guardedness. "He is a man capable of great change, Michael. He just needed a different perspective, a reminder that true strength lies not in dominance, but in understanding." She paused, her gaze thoughtful, and perhaps a reminder that true understanding comes not from what we expect, but from what we are willing to learn, from the unexpected places and faces. She had found not just a job, but a purpose, a renewed sense of self. The ghosts of her past in Kiev still haunted her, a lingering shadow, but they were no longer overwhelming. The pain was still there, a part of her story, but it was accompanied by a burgeoning sense of peace, a quiet determination to use her gifts for good, to be a beacon of hope for others. She was no longer hiding. She was seen. She was valued. And in that recognition, that profound validation, she found a deep sense of healing, a quiet triumph of the human spirit. Her journey, from the bombed-out streets of Kiev to the polished halls of Thorne Innovations, was a testament to resilience, to the quiet power of human potential, and to the profound truth that often the most extraordinary abilities lie hidden in the most unexpected places. It was a story that transcended language barriers, cultural divides, and preconceived notions. It was a story about the universal language of human connection, of empathy, and of second chances. This was Elena's academic redemption, her underdog triumph, a powerful racial/class contrast that changed everything. This tearjerker will restore your faith in humanity. Subscribe now. This is why we say, genius doesn't wear a suit. Don't miss the next chapter, where a high school dropout becomes Wall Street's biggest threat. Subscribe now. What would you do if you discovered such a life-altering secret? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters. Join our community of truth seekers. This jaw-dropping twist will change how you see power. Don't miss the next chapter. Subscribe now.